Our second panel, titled Roots and Roots, Enriching Tourism Through Cultural Heritage, is moderated by Asad Lalchi, CEO of Avid Learning, curator of the Royal Opera House, Mumbai, and member of FICCI Tourism and Culture Committee.
Good afternoon, everyone. Roots and Roots, Enriching Tourism Through Cultural Heritage. This panel will examine the best practices and exemplary approaches for integrating rich cultural heritage into tourism endeavors. Let's begin by examining the state of inbound tourism in India. As many of you know, by the way, since we are in a FICCI conference, I've used the FICCI's 2023 Inbound Tourism Report, Unlocking the Potential. We know that there is an explosion of tourism happening in India, especially international travelers. Despite the challenges posed by the pandemic, India has received 6.2 million foreign tourists in 2022 with a growth rate of 307%. The travel and tourism sector contributes 9.2% of the country's GDP in 2022. And in terms of employment, it generated 44.6 million jobs, which is approximately 8.5% of the total employment in India. The total contribution to travel and tourism economy, both direct and indirect, was estimated to be 426 million USD in 2022. In the recent released World Economic Forum Travel and Tourism Development Index 2024, India has risen to the 39th place with respect to global tourism activities, returning to pre-pandemic levels. India was ranked 54 in the last published report in 21. And by 2030, India is expected to be among the top 5 business travel markets. During India's G20 presidency, more than 200 meetings were held in more than 50 states. 2023 was declared as the Visit India Year 2023 to position India as a 360 holistic destination in major international source markets. India's vision for 2047 is to become a $1 trillion industry. To achieve this goal, the government has formulated a draft national tourism policy that is diversifying tourism offerings by exploring unique and new tourism products such as cultural and heritage tourism, adventure tourism, ecotourism, and wellness tourism. Since we are sitting in Kerala, and I just got to know that Dr. Venu had named it God's own country, Kerala received a record surge number of domestic tourists in 2023 with 2.87 million people visiting the state and with a surge of 16%. The 2023 figures was also 18.7% higher than the pre-COVID years. You can see state-wise the breakup. I won't try to pronounce it because I know I'm going to mess it up. But international tourists in the state had 6.49 million visitors in 2023 compared to 3.45 million in 22, with a staggering growth rate of 87%. It is no surprise that God's own country has bagged the prestigious Global Responsible Tourism Award of 2023, a major endorsement of sustainable and women-inclusive initiatives promoted by the Responsible Tourism Mission. Now, since we're talking about the creative economy, I'm just going to talk a little bit about India's creative sector. India is home to approximately 1.5 billion people. We overtook China last year with a GDP of 4.11 trillion. India is the 5th largest economy with nominal GDP. The market size of the culture and the creative industries in India is 36.2 billion, contributing to 8.3% of the country's employment. 8th largest exporter of creative goods, and the total market share of exports of creative goods and services was 111 billion in 2019. I know Dr. Fazal Shah that these are not the latest figures, but we do have some figures. But what is interesting is we have 40 World Heritage Sites, 6 creative cities by UNESCO, 112 folk dances, and 9 classical dance forms. Creative tourism was the first time defined in 2000 by Richard and Raymond, emphasizing the significance of creativity in planning and development of cultural tourism. Creative tourism offers new ways of designing the cultural landscape, including festivals, cultural routes, museums, and heritage to have an interactive role and a more engaging experience in co-creating with visitors and the local population. In 1998, Pine and Gilmore elaborated on the idea of the experience economy, the notion that consumers, including tourists, are in search of emotionally satisfying, memorable personal experiences. By the way, the Taj Mahal I heard yesterday, I read yesterday in the Times of India in Mumbai, had 6.8 lakh visitors. And the Kozhikode Literature Festival has 6 lakh, so I think it's doing pretty well. The rise of altered tourism models and booming creative economy have fueled a closer connection between tourism and creativity, adding a creative twist to the tourism, becoming a popular diversification strategy, especially in cultural tourism. Today, we have experts from culture and tourism, practitioners from Pan-India, who will share their extensive experience and insight that can be leveraged across India. Please put your hands together and welcome founder, partner, Rare India, Shobha Rudra. Too loud, it shouldn't be bad. Managing partner, DC Books and founder, the Kerala Literature Festival, Ravi DC. Chief Executive Officer, Sargaria Kerala Arts and Crafts Village, Bhaskaran PP. Sorry. And Curator, Art Historian and Director of Programs, the Kochi Biennale Foundation, Mario D'Souza. Thank you and welcome this afternoon. Cultural heritage is the vast tapestry woven with threads of tradition, art, craft, architecture, literature, and lived experiences passed down through generations. It holds immense potential for driving sustainable tourism and economic development. And I'm going to start with Shobha. We met earlier this year at the Bridges Rare Conference, where I was delighted to moderate a session on museums as a muse. So tell us about Rare India and to share your experiences, because you've been doing this for a few years, of promoting tourism as a force for good.
So I began in 2003 and really can't claim that I had this vision and this is where I should progress. But as it was a gap in the market, there were a lot of small boutique hotels opening up in the off-the-beaten-track areas, and they were actually bringing up destination stories. And when I mean destination stories, everything that we talked about as culture, as performing arts, cuisine, textiles, crafts, even some kind of performing arts, for instance, they all came into focus. So we were not generally promoting monuments when we were talking about a Ramathra fort or a Shapura Bagh. We were bringing to fore conservation stories. We were talking about an art form that was slowly dying away. We were talking about a cuisine that only that family knew. So this, over a period of time, and as more and more hotels joined in, it became a kind of narrative for the tourism industry, which was just waking up to the idea of promoting experiences rather than monuments. Today, what I see after 20 years, even the monuments are being looked at through the lens of an experience of the monument. So a better tour company or a better experience provider is one who is able to show you a monument in a more experiential and engaging way, rather than just give you the dimensions or the height or somebody's fingers being cut away and stories like that. So over a period of time, I've seen the more and more, and as the demand or as the curiosity for experiences like this increased, there was also on the other hand, there were hotels, havelis, conservationists, people who really wanted to sustain or build on what they were having, and tourism seemed like a great idea. So for me, tourism then became just not a hotel, come, stay, meet, eat. It also became the destination story. It also became, and again, I must tell you, this is not entirely that came to me myself, but it was actually the hoteliers trying to make an impact in a world that was ruled over by the Tajas and everything, to bring these little places, and how do you place it in a tourism map? So the more they delved into their own history, their own community's background and culture, the better it became for them to promote their hotel and promote the destination, which eventually found its way into the tourism map. Okay, so that's about us. We are essentially, they're not my stories. I'm like a bank teller. Everything passes through me. There's somebody else's hotel, somebody else's story. I just, try and make sense of it and build it in such a way that it is understandable to the travel fraternity and also to the travelers.
But there's a fine balance between, the authenticity of cultural heritage and then leveraging it as a catalyst for tourism. How is that done generally?
So it is
By the hoteliers.
Yeah, it is entirely on the hoteliers. It is entirely the hoteliers' perspective. In fact, for a long time, I had to push them. We would go and do a presentation and I would say, talk about this, talk about, the bowl singers that are coming there. But the hoteliers wanted to talk about the rooms they had and they were air conditioned. And I said, those things I will tell you. Tell me about the story. Talk about that water conservation that your family has been, propagating for the last 350 years. Talk about why your place is called Ramathra. There's a little place very close to Jaipur called Ramathra. It is actually Ram Tehra, which apparently Ram, and how he went there, I don't know. He went to this place near Jaipur on his quest, on his search for Sita. But these became engaging stories, not to the end customer, which was the inbound market, but to the tour operators who were basically Indians, and these kind of stayed in their head. So when I was promoting a destination, stories that were basically Indian and from their local communities, they just made a lot of difference. Going to them and talking to them about fud painting, for instance, which nobody knew about. And even the hotel owners, they thought, who would be interested in these things? It actually created a lot of interest in the tourism business, and 20 years later, everybody is vying over each other to tell a better story. But the original stories stays with the community, which if a hotel is clever enough, he actually adopts it as a character for his hotel.
Right, thank you for that. I'm going to go to Ravi. Bright, can we have the third presentation queue, please? Ravi, Kozhikode, the city that hosts the Kerala Literature Festival, has been designated as the first UNESCO City of Literature in India. This recognition highlights the city's rich literary legacy and its commitment to promoting the literary arts. I had the pleasure of moderating 2 sessions there earlier this year, and it was quite magical. Tell us about the reasons and why did you start the Kerala Lit Fest and your journey so far?
In fact, Kerala has a culture of libraries here. There's about 8,000 libraries, which started in probably the 1945 and on. So those libraries were the meeting places for many people actually. If you take each panchayat, there's probably about 8 libraries in a panchayat, So those were the first kind of meeting forum for people to discuss on art, literature and culture. So over the years actually that has gone into a different model actually, a bit of politicized, and still the books are in, but discussions are not happening. So we thought, let's take it out of the libraries. Libraries is where actually they used to discuss, deliberate on things actually. So what we did is actually, why can't they meet the authors? We thought, let them meet the authors and discuss with them, So we made it as a forum for meeting the authors and to discuss on it. And the first year when we did it, we had about 50,000 people. We just experimented on the beaches of Kozhikode. The fun part was actually, we were looking for a space actually, and following Boss's model, we were looking for warehouses and godowns and all. We couldn't find any actually in and around which was available. Then we looked at one of the garbage dumping places in the beach actually. So we cleaned about 5 or 6 truckloads of garbage from there. We set the space over there for the first Literature Festival. And in fact, we didn't expect that. With a short notice, we didn't expect that kind of crowd will come in there actually. And so that grew from there actually to a larger literature festival in 2017. As you said, it was more than 550,000 people actually there. And I must say, this is not the first literature festival in Kerala. The first was actually done by Sanjoy and the Hay Festival actually. And luckily I was a part of Sanjoy's team at that time. So for 3 years I was in the team. So that sort of triggered me to do the literature festival in Kerala as such. And having said that, now Kerala has almost 30 literature festivals actually. Across the Mahatma Gandhi University started one, then the Payyanur is a small town in Kannur actually, then Palakkad. So the local libraries and the tiny little the libraries as well as the universities and the colleges also do LitFest actually. So the scale is different actually. I mean, maybe KLF is a mega event, but there are events with 15,000-20,000 people actually with the LitFest attending across. And that also triggered actually, I mean, then the mayor, the current mayor of Calicut, Bina Philip. So she discussed on the possibilities of making it as a city of literature, which I still believe that KLF is a catalyst for her to do that actually, and it really worked actually. It's the first city in India, the city of literature by the UNESCO creative cities actually.
But you chose Kozhikode for a reason, right?
Thing is actually Kozhikode has all that, I would say the fun element with the culture. Like earlier somebody was saying about 21 communities were in Fort Kochi and other places. Kozhikode also had the kind of tradition with about 19 communities from the last few hundred years, actually few centuries. And so it has the culture of food, again, for the literature, for the music. And there's a lot of stalwarts actually, like M.T. Wazirner is one of the living legends actually in Kozhikode, Vaike Mohun Bashir, P.M. Taj, Tikkudi and S.K. Patakar. You name it actually, most of the people who, they choose a place as Kozhikode to actually, do the literary life over there. And more than that, actually, if you ask me which is the most liberal place in South India, I would say Kozhikode is. I mean, you won't believe it actually. I mean, you will see people at 2 a.m. in the morning in the beach, probably young girls and boys all. They all enjoy the music. I mean, there's no restriction whatsoever. I mean, I have not seen a place like that in Kerala or in except for Goa and other places actually. And for us actually, of the crowd, 65% of the people who come for the LitFest, they are below 30. So, which is a major thing. And this is one literature festival where, after every single session, the Q&A is jam-packed with questions. You will see people going with the brochure and marking their calendar, which sessions to attend. And they have the questions ready before the session starts. Actually, you must have experienced that actually. So this is something fun about it, probably being the 100% literate or having the culture of reading and all. So when you talk about the LitFest actually, so that has built an ecosystem by itself actually to have across Kerala now actually. So this is how the LitFest actually is. I didn't really do much slides actually.
Anyway, can we have the fourth presentation queue, please? Bhaskarji, the Sargalya, I'm sorry my pronunciation is terrible, Kerala Arts and Crafts Village has created a remarkable platform for preserving and promoting traditional craftsmanship. You're empowering local communities and you're preserving cultural heritage simultaneously. Tell us about this wonderful initiative.
We know the early 1960s, more than 10 lakhs artisans were practicing. However, now it is only less than 10,000. When we go to the weaving sector, it is also in 2000, it is more than 2 lakhs. Now the weavers in Kerala is less than 14,000 only. We know in Kerala, tourism is growing around 8%. But unfortunately, the handicraft sector is declining. We know both are supplementing. But why this happened in Kerala? We have conducted a study in all over Kerala, in all the traditional villages. And we found that the major problem is, earlier the Kudiyatam artists says that the new generation is not coming to this sector. That is a major issue. And when we go to the reason why new generation is not coming to this sector, we found that one is charters, other is not getting the sufficient income when compared with other sectors. Also, the marketing of the product is also very, very difficult in Kerala. And our organization started in 2011, and the Honorable Principal Secretary's initiative was that. And initially I find it very difficult to get the artisan for giving part experience to this tourist. But we have done is we have selected local people and give them training, send them various traditional center. But thing is, now the major challenge facing the craft sector is how to distinguish mass production and the high value handmade products. That was the biggest challenge. We have one experience because once a family from Bangalore visited our emporium. They bought one necklace made of coir fiber. And we have sold the item at 950 rupees. Thus people were quarreling with our sales people, saying that this material is you are throwing away. Then why you are charging this much amount? I bring them to the making units and show the making, and I encourage them to participate in the making. And what happened is, they have entirely changed their view. They brought 6 necklaces and say that your charging is undervalued, your product values, your value is undervalued. That means the only thing we have to do to distinguish the mass production with the high value production is the increasing the experience, skilling nature of the experience, and intangible and everyday culture experience. Then only we can able to make these people, make the community aware of the high value nature of the product. Another major issue that we know, the creative industry, cultural tourism is slowly shifting to creative tourism, where the consumption and production is very important role. But how to give the skilled nature of consumption to the tourist, how to give the growing importance, show their growing importance experience, how we are giving the importance to intangible and everyday culture. That is very important. But one thing we have suggested, as earlier stated, we have given a proposal to the government. In every school, one craft, one school concept, but not only one craft and one art also. Select each, we can initially select one school from the block. 354 blocks are in Kerala. And if we give the freedom to the students to accept, at least to those who are interested to practice or attain the skill in each school. Then we can say within a span of 10 years, we can create 30,000 new artists from the younger generation. That is only way, because we have tried various programs, various initiatives to attract the new generation, but it is not at all possible. We have conducted various workshops, seminars in the various parts of state, but unfortunately, those who attend the workshops and only 4 numbers is lesser than 40 years of old age. That is the situation in Kerala. How can we make the tourism more creative? When we go through the each product, craft product, we can see it is linked with any one of the culture or history or tradition. We take one sword made of wood. We can say this is the sword of Odenan. When we place a boat, we can say it is the boat used by the Kunyali Marika, or the boat used by the Vasco da Gama, or the boat used for transporting the goods from Maypur to Arabian country. Then we can solve the product very easily, because we are not selling the products, but we are selling a history or story or tradition. Then this is the only way to improve the marketing of the craft products.
Wonderful. I think you have some more slides of the. Do you want to show them? All right. I'll come back to you, sir. Mario, sitting there very patiently. The inaugural edition of the Biennale was 12-12-12. I had the pleasure of attending it. Also had the pleasure of doing a curtain raiser for you all before you all opened in Mumbai. As you look back, you had 89 artists from 23 countries, 44 Indian artists. I mean, that was quite a remarkable achievement for the first edition of anything, right? So how have you, if you look back now, how do you see from the first edition to now, what have been some benchmarks, some best practices, and whilst pushing this boundaries of contemporary art, because you have put Indian contemporary art technically on the map, on the global map. So some of your learning.
I guess we started out by thinking about audiences first, and when I say we, I mean both Krishnamachari is here, the force behind the Kochi Biennial. We also have KJ Sohansar here, who's our advisor. Was to be able to understand that how can you not just land an art festival in a completely new landscape like a spaceship, right? And not be aware of the surroundings. Like, how do you cultivate new audiences? And how can an encounter extend into a kind of an experience? And I think the first edition in many ways was a big residency. All the artists were on ground, they were producing the work like on site, they were working with a lot of local sectors, craftspeople, skillsmen, as well as all our volunteers, and our core team is essentially from in and around Fort Kochi, right? So we also work a lot towards building that talent. A lot of the people that are working with artists are working with the biennial, are working with the cultural sector per se for the very first time. And then moving on from the first edition, I think we realized that whilst contemporary art is one pillar, it was also very, very important for us because a large part of our audiences, almost about 80% of our audiences come from within the state. It was important to think about programming in a more interesting way. So the experience of art in itself is very limited. Like lots of people that come to the biennial will probably only see Aspinwall and not go to any other venue. So we're aware of that, but it's time spent, right? So it was interesting to bring them then into the pavilion format where you'd have dance, you'd have theater, you'd have panel discussions. Something that we've struggled with over the years is how do you make art jargon accessible, and we've always been a bilingual biennial in that sense, but I think we've now reached a point where we feel a little more confident in making language accessible. And mediation is a big part of it. It's something that we've come up with over the years where we have a very strong mediator program. Through the day, you have mediators taking audiences through a selection of artworks for as long as they want. So they'll do one venue with you, or they'll do all 5 venues with you, or they'll do all 14 venues with you. So I think it has been a lot of strategy building and learning as we go. In fact, I think from starting out as an international exhibition of art, we've now come to realize in our almost we're 12 years, 15 years now in the thinking and making of this exhibition, to think about how can we think internationally from a regional perspective. How can we put the region first? How can we put people first?
Local.
Yeah.
I'll come back to you. Shobha, according to the organization Net Zero, the travel and tourism industry constitutes for 10% of the global GDP, 320 million, but is responsible for 8% of the world's carbon emission. Now, how is Bridges by Rare setting an example of becoming a carbon neutral event, and what are the strategies and learnings you can offer cultural tourism initiatives to reduce their carbon footprint? I know you'll work very closely on the whole sustainable angle of tourism.
Yeah. First of all, in the tourism business, beyond anything anybody might say, and contrary to a lot of numbers that are thrown out, there is not much initiative, or there is not much importance. Tour companies do not see value in turning into sustainability. The space we are currently in is you have to be seen here. You don't want to be not seen, right? So you just come, show your face. That big switch where tourism has to, and companies like CJS have been working far before even I ventured into this. They will all agree. It is still not, it's not for them an economic proposition. They don't think that it is a must, and this is where we are all heading to. The second thing is understanding of sustainability. Currently, it is still in the plastics and in the thing, and they don't really understand what all the sustainability encompasses. For instance, if I were to tell somebody, if you use a heritage hotel versus a big, big group hotel that's been built ground upwards, there is a little quality of preservation that will add to your sustainability footprint. That understanding is still not there. The reason why we put together Bridges after having promoted, even Rare India switched over to a very strong case promoting sustainable travel from the perspective of planet-friendly, planet-sensitive and community-inclusive in 2012, 2013. That's when, even for me, it became something that was a big differentiator, which is why all the hotels we started gathering under the Rare umbrella had to tick a few of these points. Primary among them was, how did they tell the destination story? You can't bring Korean and Chinese furniture, put it in your deck and say, this is Rajasthan, this is tradition, come take a look at it. It just doesn't work like that. You can't come and serve lobster thermidor in Ladakh and say we are sustainable, but we give you everything you want to do. The fact of the matter is, travelers really, sorry to say this, but they really don't care. When they're looking at luxury, and the problem is this word luxury, which basically means you do whatever we want, we'll get you whatever you want, you throw, but your luxury is protected. Doesn't matter what happens to the environment, it doesn't matter what happens to the community around. The point behind to take this a step forward from what Rare India did as a foot soldiering, and it was also becoming very, very difficult to say what we were saying and create the same impact we did in 2003 when we walked into tourism offices, and we were a bunch of, we were 40 or 50 hotels doing this, only one of them was a large group, which was CGH, and the rest were all standalone hotels. Nobody was talking this as a big story. Today, everybody is saying we are sustainable. Sustainable is like, of course we are sustainable. What? You are not sustainable, we are sustainable. So the point behind Bridges was to bring this together and kind of nudge the industry to change, to start looking at sustainability not as if you say, and I have people who come and sit on panels and talk about and make big statements about sustainability, and if you actually look into their thing, what is sustainable? We have moved to steel bottles and we've stopped plastic, but that's like elementary, right? There's so much more to do. The idea behind Bridges was to put tourism, not only tourism at the intersection of everything, art, culture, heritage, community, everything that India or the subcontinent really regards as its personal entity or its personal character, to bring it all back. If it is yoga, whether it is meditation, or even some of our hymns and chants, I want all of it to become a part of the tourism business. People should come into India not for that Kerala mean curry or go to Tamil Nadu for seeing Pongal or something like that, but the entire story. So every destination should tell the entire story, number one. Number two, the other very, very big thing for me was to tell people that there is no sustainability shaming. I mean, there's, oh, you didn't do, I didn't do. But here's a journey, right? And we are all at the beginning of the change. So we are all, walking that path. And here are the subsequent steps to do it. So going net zero, for instance, is probably the next step to nudge the industry to change. So.
Wonderful. Ravi, curating such a large festival or, even your publishing program, I mean, how does one build this cultural sensitivity towards the local tourists and between the tourists and the local audiences? I mean, do you curate based on themes? How do you also bring in, because we were talking earlier, and I've actually experienced your festival. You have the languages in another area. You have the English programs in another area, and then people they interchange between both. I mean, I was in a room where it was full of people. I said, who knows Prahlad Kakkar there? But we had a full room. But how does one curate for such a diverse and literate audience? It must be, and also make it sensitive and bring about being responsible, whether it's sustainability or whether it's.
With the curation, actually, what we do is we try to focus like 70%, 60 to 70% into Malayalam as a language, actually, and the Malayalam literature as such. The 30% we earmark for the English and the non-Malayalam language sessions, actually. So within the sessions, actually, I mean, JLF, Jaipur Literature Festival as a model, other festivals as different models, actually. But what we have done different from the other festivals is actually, within that 70% or within that 100% of total, we have 30 to 40% which is a non-book content, actually. So we discuss on the current thing, the contemporary things, actually, or on
reading pattern.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things. I mean, for example, I mean, I don't want to say LGBTQE, but literally all the areas actually we address, and so we look at the areas actually which needs to be addressed. So that gets curated from day one after the Litfest is over. So over the next 365 days, what we do is actually we look at the kind of speakers we can get, the kind of areas we can think, and we have experts actually. I mean, or we try to source experts actually in different areas, and we try to discuss on those areas. That's one thing with the Litfest actually. Second is that also, I mean, like we leave it. It's like earlier you were talking about the co-creation. So the Kerala Literature Festival is a co-created literature festival with the public. I mean, I don't know any other literature festival within Kerala, or maybe few actually, but this is entirely left to the people actually. I mean, we do the voting from day one, so we ask for the areas actually which they want to discuss. We look at the authors actually, and a lot of areas we discuss, and we get these topics and some of these speakers if our curation team accepts this actually. That's one thing. Second is on the green part actually, or the sustainability part, there are a lot of bottlenecks still, even now actually. I mean, like we have been trying to get power connection directly from the KSCB versus the diesel generators. I think it's a tough task actually get the power connections and all, which probably has a major effect actually in terms of actually all the pollution kind of thing. But one thing we do is actually, I mean, I just want to give one introduction to the whole space of the Kerala, because it's right on the beach, as you know, but that space actually was a garbage dumping yard. Then the first year when we did it actually, there was a representative actually, MLA for the region, Pradeep Kumar. He said, can you make this place as a permanent place for the literature festival? I said, yeah, we can discuss that actually. Then he said, the next thing he put on table is actually, I'll spend about 7 crores for this if you can make it as a permanent space. So the next thing I know is actually he spends about 4 or 5 crores from his MLF fund over the next 3 years, then from the tourism actually. So this is, so all that actually, he got all these architects, and all of them were actually discussing on the area of how to make a more eco-friendly or environment-friendly space actually. So all the architects who worked in the whole area is also actually worked in the same sphere actually. Again, I mean, the story is different now actually. I mean, like now getting the space is a tough thing actually. A lot of departments, once you take the ownership, port department says that we have to pay X amount of money actually towards the rent. So then the tourism department comes and says that you have to pay the same amount to us also because we are maintaining it. I mean, we are paying to multiple agencies. And some of the spaces, the buildings actually built for KLF. One is a KDC kitchen now. So all this happens in between actually. I mean, because of the government didn't think it over, I mean, think through it actually. What happens is actually some of the spaces became something like a KTDC restaurant next is a good space where we had the media interviews, now a kitchen. So I mean, this is that story of things actually. But while we discussed it during that lunch actually, you know, I take the phone and call Dr. Venu over Dinesh and all and get things done actually. But still, it's.
I have a policy question for you after, so you can get that.
But the last thing in that is actually in the whole thing actually, the Pradeep Kumar. There's one person I should discuss later actually on what he has done is actually, Emily has done is actually, he also gets a team of about 150 students with a staff shirt kind of t-shirt with the thing there in the green protocol actually. So what he does is actually he deploys all the students actually under his leadership, and every nook and corner is covered with the students. And what they do is actually, whenever somebody throws a paper, they pick it up. And at times they tell the people that, I mean, can we it's a beach, you need to keep it clean, you know. I'm sure you must have noticed that actually, you know.
I'll come back to that in the policy question to you. Mario, I'm just going to jump into you. Actually, we're all quoting Dr. Venu quite often, but he talked about the impact of the creative economy, the Kochi Biennale. Now, you know, the Biennale is not just about the Biennale, it's the homestays, it's the eateries, it's the rickshaw guy, it's the cigarette wala. Have you all done any deep dive into research numbers or the impact that this has had on Kochi?
I mean, over the years, of course, we've had like several kinds of reports like produced on the impact of the biennial. We've done with KPMG very recently. We were just thinking about Aspinwall and how like the building in itself is now like a cultural like heritage icon and why it must be preserved. So I think there are like many strategies that we are, again, like I think we're dealing with the same levels of like bureaucracy and like the passing the baton that the Literature Festival is dealing with. So we're also like constantly on the go, thinking on our feet, catering to different aspects, you know, of having these conversations. But what we started to do more recently, especially over the last 3 editions, is we've started to talk a lot more to our immediate community. We have been thinking a lot more about, like I said, for example, for programming, we think a lot about what is the talent that is on the island and that is around the island, and how can we bring that in, and how can we mobilize that to be able to build audiences that wouldn't typically like come to the biennial. So in 2016, if KPMG is saying that, okay, you know, there has been a 17% growth of local audiences from in and around Fort Kochi coming to the biennial, that has increased like drastically in 2022, because we've now also extended the biennial by a month to be able to, in some sense, like bring in the school students or the college students, because then they get April off. So, you know, it's a good time for them to be able to come and look at art. And at the end of the day, I think, once again, I mean, to stress on the importance of mediation is that you just don't bring people to the creative sector and then ask them to, like, you know, feel it. Like, you have to create inroads. Like, that's the constant labor that we're doing. So, yeah, I guess that's...
No, I'm just talking more about the statistics, you know, which can be benchmarked for other initiatives, you know, and other arts and culture initiatives, because these are like wonderful case studies that need to be leveraged, especially for the arts and culture.
I mean, for us, like this year, in the last edition, we've had almost like a 300,000 people increase from the edition in 2018. which again is something that is quite interesting to be able to see that post-COVID, like there was this need for people to come out there and to be able to engage with like contemporary art in that sense.
I was sitting on the presentation on the Venice Biennale, and this guy's actually calculated the amount of hotel beds per issue, and they also then comes to my next question of over-tourism and the Disneyfication of Venice, which is what they were all talking about, and stretching the infrastructure of the local venue.
This is something that we struggle with as well, also because like a lot of the staying options on the island are actually homestays. Several of these, whilst they are registered, are also like, they're only active for the biennial period. And we do encourage people to be able to take up homestays because it's like an experience, right? Of like living in a house, and to like have like very, very like you're almost like a part of the family, and you're being like led around, and they're telling you what they want. And that's the thing about the biennial as well, right? Like, people are always recommending things. The locals are always like recommending things, and I think that sense of ownership is something that is pretty much the USP of this kind of large.
Bhaskar, you won the National Tourism Award for the best rural tourism project in India. Now, how do you ensure that these benefits actually are distributed with the local communities? How does that trickle down to not just your project, but around them?
Sir, actually, the benefit we have given to this local community itself, because we are given skill training to this so many local ladies, especially ladies, and when we got the work order, we are placing the job order to these people, and they will get the very good income. And another thing is that now we are trying to change the design from the utility to fashion to lifestyle or decoratives. Then the market, we found that then the market will be more. Another my suggestion is now we notice that more than 6 lakhs foreigners are visiting in Kerala. In Kerala last financial year. Well, suppose we place one cupboard in every room, in the lodging room, put some of the art form, whether it is the Mohiniyattam form or Pulikali or any form, and we make a QR code there, and the visiting tourist can able to experience by scanning this experience our culture. And it will support that they can able to create an interest to either buy the product or to see the performance of that thing. I think that will be, it will increase our marketing potentials, I think so.
There's a lot of talk about, a lot of younger people are leaving Kerala, leaving a lot of, senior citizens behind who are very talented, have great sources of knowledge. Have you all thought of, or do you all work with also the senior artisans, or is it just the younger ones you train with?
So I think the one artisan, Mr. Gobaratan, actually he was a traditional porter. But earlier I have already told that the sector is declining and or languishing, and we found he is doing a security job.
I'm talking more on a mass.
Yes.
As well.
No, we are supporting so many people, even the local people, for giving the workshops and the various skill training, and even those who are not able to walk, we are giving training to these bedridden people so that they can able to generate some source of income. And you can see there are the 3 people without the workable condition. If his hand is able to make something, we are giving training to them, we are giving some income to these people.
This was a question that came up in lunch, Sanjoy. I've addressed it once. I'm going to pass it on to Mario also. That there is this, the senior population. I'm not saying very old, but people who are here, who are very talented, extremely skilled, who have things to share. How does one leverage them and leverage their knowledge for tourism and especially in heritage area? Mario, do you all have senior docents or?
I mean, we work with people across the board, and I think this is what has, like I was mentioning, like a lot of the people that work at the Biennial come from in and around Fort Kochi, and this is also their first experience, like we're working with contemporary art or with an exhibition, working with an artist or working on a research project. So we have people across all age groups. Also amongst mediators, we have like mediators across all age groups to be able to also cater to different types of audiences that are coming in. Programming, again, we're trying to look at talent that has been overlooked in and around the area, or people who've been practicing for many, many, many years, bringing them in, and then they bring that kind of an audience in. So there's a lot that's happening, and now we're also moving forward to thinking a lot more towards like human stories, right? So whilst like there is a narrative around Fort Kochi and its history, we're trying to like dig a little more to look at, okay, what is the history of this lane, what is the history of this building, and to be able to create that kind of a heritage map, you know, for which we are engaging a lot of people who live in and around
the
area.
objective of today's is to get policy. It's policy driven now. So Ravi, I know your father was instrumental in removing tax on books and caused this paperback revolution. Shubha, you must realize that with GST on hotel rooms coming down from 18% to 12%, makes travel a little more affordable for many people. So bring out that crystal ball. What are the policy implications that you all would like to see happen for the tourism industry and the work you all do, or the cultural industry?
So one of the big things I'd really like, working in this, basically in sustainability and repurposing of heritage buildings, conservation around wildlife and nature parks, would be some kind of incentive, tax-based incentive to these areas where you are appreciated for doing what you're doing, right? I mean, a lot of them are pioneers. Some of our wildlife lodges have opened up parks where no footprint for tourism existed, right? So those, I mean, yes, taxation is necessary, but and I don't want all tax to end up as roads to the last mile and take more and more tourists there. But if you can localize the initiative and maybe give them tax benefits, give them when they're taking loans, a lot of the heritage properties, they're under a lot of loans. How do you repurpose a place? And even if it's a 10-room or a 12-room heritage project that comes up, the ROIs on it are far flung. I mean, God knows when are you going to get back that kind of money. But if you increase the pricing, it becomes virtually unsellable. And I know in the pandemic, a lot of these guys struggled, right? So the government, if it's really, there's a lot of talk going on, and they're bringing in travel life and everything. And if they are very serious about this, and they should be, as they should be, the benefits from tourism should be localized. So if a destination is being put onto a tourism map, and if the person, the one tourism entity is working towards employment for the community, also skilling for the community is very important. It ensures that there is no migration into the larger cities. Also taking some of the skills that is endemic to the community and building it up with the culture or the character of the hotel. If these things are not picked up, hotels do not, I don't see going forward, they would like to make it look very good on Instagram, but does it really, will it benefit the local community is what I would...
I know some cases where they have actually restored the property, and then the property value went up and their property tax went up. Yeah. So they paid their own money, restored the property, and they paid more taxes as a result. So that's also another. Ravi, any policy?
And also contend with competition, because you opened up something there, and everybody now is starting to restore this thing because the destination is on the map.
Right.
I think creating spaces actually. I don't think most of our towns don't have, cities don't have space actually. So have an area actually for the cultural activities like the Kalaguda, which happens in Mumbai, or take the Hay as the town, So we don't have that kind of spaces across, and I think that's the biggest limitation to having events across. So I mean, we have pretty old bridges actually, which is abandoned and left behind, or we have enough and more space actually. I think that could really trigger a lot of cultural activities across. That's what I believe it. Then I was sharing the recently when I was in Ho Chi Minh City. I mean, even a small city like that, Ho Chi Minh, they have a book street, they have a area for culture. So all these actually really triggers actually into more into the cultural scenario and otherwise.
Any policy recommendations you'd want, because this is the place to make your wish list?
Sir, in Kerala, our Kudumbasri system is very strong. Then we can make the Kerala as a crafting community, because Kerala is take it as a destination. Earlier I have told that in each block level we can able to develop each craft in each block. A visiting tourist can able to experience all the craft system in Kerala. Then it will empower our tourism all sector. That will be first point. Another thing we have to document all the history. Then again, earlier I had told that each product should be linking with something. For example, elephant is a craft. Then we can link elephant with the Thrissur program or any other festival. Then a visiting tourist, we can create an interest to the visiting tourist to see the things, to experience our culture. That method I think we can able to, because our major strength is our tourism itself, because very huge potential is still there. But unfortunately, we are not exploiting that potential in handicraft sector.
Wonderful, wonderful. Mario?
I guess all of that, because I think we're all in the same boat. But also I think something that we are struggling with is just for people to understand, actually policymakers to understand, that an art exhibition is not a parallel entertainment system. We're not a movie. We're actually an education platform. We speak about everything from like discursive ideas to enlightened politics, emancipation. We take up every theme possible, from like empowerment to like women and children. Why are we being taxed? Why are we paying GSTs? So yeah, I mean, it's something that we're thinking and we're working towards very consciously, is to come across as not to come across as a pageant, I suppose, but to come across as a center for encounters and learning. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what we are.
I'm taking the Dr. Shah Faisal's 4 pointers and going to communication and marketing. When I lived in New York, we had Incredible India all over that New York, which was a wonderful, at that point of time, like 20 years ago, was quite omnipresent. Then when I came here, I was privileged enough to work on a concept called India Is, which was now Deep's in the Ministry of External Affairs online photography and videography contest to highlight the softer powers of India. God's Own Country, I think, is fantastic, and now we met the creator. How important do you think is branding or marketing? Many countries have used it very successfully to generate tourism. Any of you all? Ravi, if you want to just take that.
I think Kerala, the tourism industry actually from God's Own Country or beyond that actually has done wonderfully well actually with the branding and the marketing part. But to sustain
I'm studying questions.
So just to sustain that actually I think you can't sell the landscape alone or the place alone. Actually now the cultural tourism comes into place. Actually that's what probably when you look at London, actually they sell the history. Mm-hmm. So I think that if the branding can be further extended, actually I think that's quite important that actually because I mean Ceylon, Sri Lanka can offer the similar landscape actually, but unless I mean the branding is strong enough in other areas like the culture and the history, I think the survival is going to be tough. That's where the big biennial and the Kerala and the other things come roll on.
I think I have been given looks that we have to open it up to questions. So I can probably ask a few more questions we don't have. Just kidding. Any questions from the audience?
I don't think it's a question, it's just an observation to the very, very interesting session. I have two observations to Mr. Bhaskaran. In terms of branding also, most of us, at least a couple of us, grew up in a generation where from hand crafting, the machine crafting was considered much more better. You know, you were there if you were wearing something, or you were using something that was made by machine as against hand. And therefore, the hand crafted went down in terms of. But recently I saw somewhere when the Met Gala and the big Indian designers went, they all had Karigar Aas. I think the time has come back and he very rightly said that when he took people and showed them the number of hours and the difficulty of making that item, the respect for the item went up. So I think as a policy one should always could think of actually building the brand of handcrafted things by talking about the effort that has gone in to that particular thing and bringing the respect back for handcrafted items. So that is one.
There was also the Make in India, I forgot about that. That was also quite interesting a couple of years ago.
So that was one part that I wanted to talk about, bringing the respect back to the artisan, to the craftsperson who is working with their hand. And the second thing was from the point of education, which Mr. Ravi and Mr. Maria were talking about, is that, in education there is a lot of emphasis now on internships, experiential learning and so on. So maybe as a strategy you could contact educational institutions when you're having your art festival, when you're having maybe you do that, I don't know, but I'm just suggesting that when students come and they get credit for it, for the work that they're doing, that also not just takes the word around, but also connects you to education closely and which helps you. So these were two observations.
I had the most interesting conversation at the Kerala Fest he has a business school, and all these kids from business school were interning, and all very interesting by themselves. I was talking to all of them, so I know you do have a lot of your own school children there.
We have about 500 students actually from across Malabar area itself actually. But other than that, the government actually allows attendance. They give attendance for the students who attend the KLF actually in Kozhikode, Malabar area. And the faculty, the professors who come for the Lit Fest also are given the duty leave actually. So that's one good thing happening. And we have JNU, we had about 400 kids coming and registering, or Kashmir, about 38 students last year.
I really liked Mr. Bhaskaran's suggestion that we should have traceability. But I was sort of combining ask you questions. You all are in tourism, you all are in the area. And I don't know whether the government has thought about, just like we have a GST product index code, do we have a culture heritage index code? Where you can do GI marking, you can actually say this is the place, and then to his point, have traceability. And that gets a completely different GST pricing, right? In terms of, it's like a cess, you could have 2%. But out of the income that tourism takes, which everybody sort of is amorphous, if they do buy or they consume that service, is there a way to take that out and put it back for preservation of culture and heritage? Or give it back to Kudiyatam? How does it go back to that school, that one single school, only Sangeet Natak Academy? We would not have the extensive roads in India if we didn't have a road cess. So I'm just asking you all, would you all give part of your share that it goes back, it's traceable? Would that make a change for this whole preservation?
I think so, because there's one thing that stands out to me is the GI index. They say it has, and the veena the veena there, and that rice here, and that tea there. All of this comes out, but I don't see it looping back into an efficient promotional strategy. I try to put it in as much as possible, and recently we counted, we have destinations and over 22 products and services and crafts that have the GI index. But how are we supposed to use it effectively to sell and promote? I really don't know, maybe they're one of them.
The item of steel as a board. All kinds of steel,
Yeah.
whether it's a screw or a fastener, we'll have different boards.
Yeah.
And we have culture boards, or
Yeah.
heritage boards, or a registry, of we get
Dr.
started.
Shah is making notes
I
there.
think a framework is already there. I mean,
So one of the examples, one of the best examples is actually Brazil. So what happens in Brazil is, say you have Fort Kochi as a district. Fort Kochi district, the traders provide 1% in tax to support the local cultural and craft center, which includes a gymnasium, swimming pool, library, offices for all of the dance and creative sector people in one identified district complex. In return, they give the traders tickets for all the shows. Going forward, what it's done is that in each of these districts you have the big samba floats that are created, the dances, the headgears, etc., which is coded. So what they do is that they map who's coming from which favela, who's coming from which district, based on that contribution. And it's a superb example of local intervention for local support. You know, and that's one of the things that we're looking at. It's an example that we've been looking at, is how do we take this forward in some way, but really do it at the state level and the local level, rather than at the central level. Every area has to do this in a somewhat different way because we have too many cesses for unnecessary reasons.
Thank you,
You know,
Sanjoy.
we have a similar thing in Kerala. It's a library cess. There's a 2-person, my dad and more are instrumental in that actually. 2-person library cess, but I don't know whether it's been used properly actually, but it's a brilliant thing I think we should adopt for the
I think,
Brazil model.
I think
Literature festival needs to be funded from there.
I wish they would have done.
I think we are out of time, but thank you so much. I think, you know, my last question was about technology and AI, which I haven't got to answer. But thank you to this wonderful panel for your sharing your words of wisdom and insights. And congratulations on all the wonderful work you guys are doing. I mean, really from putting tourism and heritage together. And thank you for being such a wonderful audience.